This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Heart Mojo with Melinda Smith. So,
Hi.
Melinda, it's cold and snowy outside.
Yes, it is. And that's why I see she's got her mug, I've got my mug.
Yeah, I've had too much coffee and tea today, so no mug.
No mug for you.
No mug.
No mug. Well, I'm happy to be here in December. We're officially in December and still getting through COVID and pushing forward, but vaccines on the way, vaccines in Ohio today. So hopefully we'll be able to do these in person again.
Right.
At some point. So I'm happy to have my guest, Sandy Gross. We have known each other a pretty long time, almost 30 years.
25, 26?
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time. So I would like to introduce her. She's a wonderful yoga instructor, fitness instructor, movement specialist. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to start out with asking you a few questions, like how did you get into fitness? We talk about challenges in life. We're going to get there, but I kind of want to know how you started.
Well, I think I'm 55 years old, and I think that getting into fitness in the 80s, which is when I got into it, was the right timing. You know, I think that's when a lot of us found working out, because it became socially a thing to do, going to aerobics classes. That's how I was dragged to a jazzercise class by a girlfriend whose mom was a teacher, and I was a flag girl in high school, so moving to music came naturally to me, and I was a young girl concerned about managing my weight, and I thought, wow, this is a great thing to do. So that's my start.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just felt like I got guided right along, because I lived in California where the fitness boom was really happening first. So a lot of the right place at the right time. But I also took a college course that really lit me up as an elective called Human Performance. And I had to get permission to get into this class. I had to beg my way into it and take it as, I think I took it for a grade. That was before the days of pass fail, but I devoted all my time that semester to that class, and decided at the end of that semester I wanted to change my major. This was junior year, and my parents were like, no, you're not changing it again. You're going to finish your journalism degree and your business minor, and you're going to get a job. and my dad's concern was, if you switch your major to human performance or physical education, what are your job options? Being a PE teacher? Not that that was a bad thing, but back then in the 80s, there weren't a whole lot of jobs in health and wellness. So, you know, we know now, as I'm advising my own children with college choices and career choices, they say that something like 60% of the jobs of the future don't exist yet because of the internet and computers. So I'm advising my kids a little differently than my parents advised me, that go ahead and dream big and create something that doesn't exist yet. So anyway, I just never left that what lit me up never left me. I always side hustled in fitness, even when I got a quote real job.
So was your real job in fitness, or was your real job journalism?
I had two job choices waiting for me after college that I interviewed for. One was an internship that offered me a job working for a local sports magazine. And the other one was the receptionist for an ad agency that handled Taco Bell. And no offense to Taco Bell, I love Taco Bell, but I took the sports job. I took the job that fit what lit me up, and I did that for about 5 years with that company, and then grew and went to another company that was much bigger, and always kept my side hustle teaching fitness classes. So I stuck with something I enjoyed. Again, nothing against Taco Bell, but I didn't want to spend 40 plus hours a week selling fast food. I just didn't. I had a conflict. I had like an internal crisis conflict. Like, I can dine there once in a while, but I can't make this my life. You know?
Well, so anyway. you made it through your I want to do this in life challenge, but following through what your parents had you do. How'd you end up in Cleveland from California?
Well, I was working in San Francisco, and I side hustled, you know, teaching fitness classes. And one of my side hustles was working for an agency that placed instructors on cruise ships. So I've been all over the world on cruise ships teaching fitness. And I met my husband on one of those cruise ships. And 6 months later, got engaged and moved to Cleveland, and we've been married for almost 25 years, 3 kids
Wow.
later. So, yeah.
So I don't remember, forgive me, my brain's sometimes a little fried, but when you had, I know you had the kids, because our kids are same age basically, that, you know, we knew each other before children, and then our kids went to the same school district. What did you do during that time? You left that, you had your kids, you left your other business, right? You weren't traveling on cruise ships. Had your children, and then did you start businesses locally? Did you do private training? What did you do?
I started doing personal training. I wanted to be more of an entrepreneur here in Cleveland. I did a lot of freelance jobs. I taught classes. I did some writing for a local sports magazine. I jumped right back into that. I felt like I didn't work for the marketing side. This time I was a writer for this. They gave me a monthly column in North Coast Sports. I taught classes, and I really just kind of felt like Cleveland needed a slice of California. You know, things in fitness really happened ahead of schedule on the West Coast. So I saw lots of opportunities here, and started to get into yoga, and was renting a room teaching yoga, and saw it growing pretty quickly, and had the support of my husband to, you know, take out a second mortgage and make it a go. So that's what I did. I opened a yoga studio. So that's the fast story of how I got into yoga. I saw Cleveland as an opportunity. It wasn't happening here yet, and I knew the wave would eventually come here with yoga and different kinds of fitness classes.
So you were really one of the first yoga studios, I think, right? The larger yoga
Yes,
studios.
I think Optimist Center, established themselves about 6 months before I did. And then Tammy Schneider and I became partners and founded Cleveland Yoga. It was under a different name, and then I sold my interest in that to her. She changed the name, and I developed what was called Evolution Yoga, a different studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was the first to do a real build out, you know, a big girl yoga studio where you get loans, and you have construction workers, and you're picking out flooring and, you know, plumbing, and yeah.
Well,
I did that.
It was really a beautiful location. It really was.
Beautiful. It was beautiful. It was a really great experience. I loved it.
So what kind of challenges happened with being the first to pull that kind of business into an area? What did you come up against, do you think?
Well, it was pretty successful from the start. I think we were ripe for it. I was ripe for it. My studio had a lot of anticipation around it because there was a 10-month period where I was teaching in a partnership with, you know, Cleveland Yoga, and my build out was happening. So there was a lot of nose prints on the windows of my build out. So we opened with quite a bang. Challenges. Oh gosh. Challenges were, I was pregnant with my third child then, so that was a challenge. I had 2 little ones. I had a good full-time babysitter, and I was pregnant with my third, so that was a big challenge. Managing life around it. Being young in yoga, a big challenge was figuring out how to get more training for myself without being able to travel a whole lot because I had little kids. My husband's like, you're gonna go to a retreat for 2 weeks and leave me with these kids? It's not happening. So I started inviting these. I used my, you know, communications degree and experience with travel, and I started inviting, you know, celebrity yoga teachers and well-trained yoga teachers to come to Cleveland, and that was the biggest part of my business for 17 years. Was I was the hostess with the mostest, flying everyone in and having very successful events. So my business kept growing, and I kept moving to bigger locations. I had 3 locations over 17 years. So yeah, it was great. I got to get trained and not leave home. And I was someone who was hungry to learn. I'm just a lifelong learner, as you know, a lot of people are. And I made it around education. My business was always known for being a school. We had workshops a lot. We had teacher trainings. I was always getting my own teachers to produce workshops to draw out what they're good at and what they've done some deep dives in, and how can they bring that to market as a workshop to raise everybody up with education. So that was a huge cornerstone of my studio. Whereas a lot of studios, I think today, are about going in, getting your hour yoga in and leaving. And maybe they have some teacher training programs, but not a whole lot of workshops. And they're certainly not flying in world-renowned teachers like I
Right.
was. No one ever competed with me with that. They just always knew I was the one doing it, you know?
Right.
So
Well,
yeah, it was great.
it's interesting because you took what a lot of women or anybody would look at as being a huge challenge. I have little kids. I want to do the studio. How do I make that work for me and be successful? And you thought out of the box and found a different way to spin it. And I think that's important for anybody listening to the show, that, you know, when you had an obstacle, you wanted those obstacles, your children, you wanted them, but you had to work around them to be
Yes.
able to fulfill what you wanted to do and grow your business. And you were very, very good at doing that.
I stayed true to my passion of movement and fitness and wellness, and also this interest in education. I didn't have to know it all, but I had to keep learning. You know, I always had role models in my life and teachers in my life that were like, well, if you don't know something, there's no shame in saying, I don't know, I'm going to go learn about that. So I role modeled that for everyone, and feel that's really important. You don't have to put yourself on a pedestal and act like you're this all-knowing guru. I never wore that cap. Never was comfortable with when people would project that onto me. As a yoga studio owner, that happened a lot. I always was like, I'm inviting this teacher here to Cleveland to teach a weekend workshop so that I can learn, and I'm inviting you all to join me. It was always my tone, and my marketing was about that. So yeah, I think being open to learning all the time is gotten me through a lot.
So for somebody who isn't really familiar with yoga, other than, you know, we think that we have to stand on our head and, you know, clap our hands while we're doing all that. What made you decide that bringing in, as you called, celebrity trainers was what was needed? I mean,
well, because I couldn't really travel to go learn more. I knew enough to be qualified to teach, and I felt very confident in opening a studio. I was a true student of yoga for many years before I started teaching, and I had this fitness background, so I had a certain level of experience and a vantage point on alignment and how your hips should move and how to teach a solid group exercise experience, which yoga was and still very much is in America. I lost my train of thought there for a second. So my challenges, what was I?
About getting, what made you go that route for teaching, bringing in the celebrities?
Well, I saw it as a business opportunity as well as a way for me to get more educated. I saw my own blind spots and I wanted to fill them in. People would come into the studio and say, my doctor told me to come do yoga. I have some back pain or I have shoulder pain. And my experience was limited. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to search and find out teachers that know more than I do about back pain or about shoulder pain. So that's exactly how I figured out how to hire people. I would use the internet and Google around. I would read books and invite those teachers. And I found that these teachers were very, very interested in getting on the road and traveling. That was a big part of how a lot of yoga teachers made a lot of their money pre-quarantine.
you know, and that's interesting that you say that, because what I was getting at, and the answer was perfect there, that there's all different forms of yoga based on your ailments. And most of us don't know that. We think that, you know, you open up a book and says, these are yoga poses. You know, I can do that, but I can't do it.
Right.
So I appreciate that answer.
Oh, and I invited lots of variety. If I found a blind spot of my own, I would seek it and find a teacher to help me fill that in. Lots of variety. Yeah.
Well, that actually helped you become the movement specialist that you are, because it's all about different types of movement, right? That's going to work and help you not only build your body exercise-wise, but heal your body along with that, right?
Movement heals, movement cures, and yoga is one form of movement. It's a very valuable, you know, type of movement for a lot of reasons, but there is a lot of movement out there. My field of vision was big entering into yoga because I came from the fitness industry, and I had studied somatics. I had studied the Feldenkrais technique, the Alexander technique. I studied yoga in California. I studied, my first teacher training was in California before I even moved here. So I had a broad vision of mind, body, movement, and yoga is certainly the most popular probably that people know of, but there are other types of somatic or mind body movement. There's Tai Chi, there's, like I mentioned, these other techniques. So I had a very broad perspective, and have spent the last 10 years kind of going deeper and down the rehab and physical therapy avenues, functional movement and such, to just, again, keep trying to help people solve problems. Now I do it more privately, one-on-one, or in groups with sports teams. And yeah.
Is that what made you, you closed Evolution Yoga, right?
Yes.
So you
in
moved
2015.
What made you decide to take that leap, close that, because you were very successful at that? And
yeah, yoga started to really grow over the years. And when I first opened Evolution, it was me and Optimist Center. And of course, Tammy remained with the former business. And now I think there's pre-quarantine, I think there was 150 yoga studios in Cleveland. So,
they're everywhere.
it was more neighborhoody now, and people weren't doing the big drives to come to the big studios like they used to do. I mean, we used to draw from all over Cleveland for people to come take yoga in Beechwood at my studio. So there was that, more competition. Also, my lease had an end to it, and I had to make a decision. Do I stay or do I resign? And in the last studio I had, the last location, I had changed quite a bit as a teacher. I'd gone down the rehab path, the physical therapy path. I had added self-myofascial release to something I teach and bring into my classes. I added a rope wall. I was teaching people how to do their own traction on their back. I was doing more private work. I was getting sought out by strength and conditioning coaches to work with their sports teams. So when my lease was coming due, I did some soul searching and decided that I was going to formulate a business around just me and my skill set. So that's what I did. I didn't renew the lease, and I took a year off and worked with a business coach to rebrand myself. And here I am. My new business, or 4-year-old business now, is called Move Well Education. And
it's all
I
online.
basically teach people who struggle with aches and pains how to do their own self-therapies so they can live well into old age pain-free.
Is it all online because of the pandemic, or was it already online?
It's not all online. I still see people one-on-one. And I have a virtual studio where I teach 2 classes a week, very affordable. I think it's $19.99 a month till the end of the year, and then it goes up. And I'm launching a workshop program, a 6-series workshop program called Driving School for Your Body, which is kind of the owner's manual for how the human being was designed to move, how to go back to basics and foundational movement in order to reset how your body moves and biomechanically tune how do your own work at home. It's very much an at-home program so that you can know more and be better coached, whether you're going back to a personal trainer or back to a yoga class. Just more information about how your body works, just enough anatomy and biomechanics so that you can be more empowered to help yourself and be smarter to understand when a teacher says, put your foot here and your hip here. How do you know if that makes sense for you? Instead of being a slave to just the cues the teacher's giving out in a large group class, how do you know? So I aim to empower people to know more how to make smart choices for themselves as a fitness or yoga consumer or an athlete consumer.
So with what you're doing now, so let's just backtrack to you've known me for a while. Most of the people that see the show know I've had cancer. I was a fitness coach before who can no longer do all the things that I used to do because the chemotherapy has totally affected my joints, my muscles. Mm-hmm. So would I be somebody who could join your class and you could help me figure out how to work with my body the way it is now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will say that those that join my virtual studio, many of them have worked with me privately before. So they have a foundation of my Move Well Ed program, which is my in-person version, my private version of the driving school, which I'm now scaling to be the most potent lessons of what I teach in a online program. But some people have joined it from all over the country that don't know me, that just like what I talk about. They like that it's a yoga inspired pair of classes that I work with the skeleton, and I'm teaching you. There's a little bit of a lesson in every class about your anatomy, a small one, but you start to build your toolbox of what you know. So you can make smarter choices. I'm really devoted to this educational element of how I teach. So it's not just a class, you actually get a bit of a lesson in every class. And I think that's the key. We all have to be more independent and more sovereign, and healthcare starts at home. And quarantine has just magnified that, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, this has definitely helped my business. Quarantine's helped my business because more and more people are like, oh, I need to get more, I got a kettlebell. What can I do with this at my house? So those are the kind of phone calls and lessons I'm doing now, is how someone can make life, get movement around their house and their at work situation in their home office.
While they're stuck inside.
If they can't go to a gym, or they are not prepared to invest in a big gym in their house.
Or they're afraid to, for the ones that are open.
As I listen,
or they're afraid to, yeah.
Yeah. As I listen to you, Sandy, I'm realizing there are some things that I definitely could learn from you. Number one, I had knee replacement surgery last March, and it wasn't until the last couple months, as it's gotten colder, I'm realizing I have a hard time getting in and out of the car. I can do just about everything else normally. It's in and out of the car. And I called my physical therapist, and the comment was, oh, you should be able to do it. And it's like, maybe I should be able to do it, but maybe I don't know how to do it. And that's what I'm realizing. And so I've been experimenting for the last week or so, every time I go to get in or out of the car, to pay attention to what my body is doing.
Good.
But I still realize I don't know. It's, it's a give and take situation. But there's a lot of us out there, just like myself, that
definitely
we think that we can just go to the gym and, run on the treadmill, and, it may be good for some, but not good for others.
Let me ask you this, Karen. Is it easier to get in the car, or is it easier to get out of the car? Which one's harder?
Easier to get in the car. Out of the car, because it's my right knee. It's like, I'm not sure how to move my body.
Well, getting into the car, I think we can all relate, requires us to bend and fit. We go from a standing position to bending at the ankles, knees, and hips, and rounding through the spine to get in the car, right? Getting out of the car requires unbending, using strength, pushing down to get up out of the car. So the clue there for you is do some chair squats at your desk, like right here. Like I'm sitting, you stand and sit. Start building up some of the elements of getting out of a car, right?
Okay.
So that's one thing. You can take clues from what you can't do to figure out, like, what can I work on to get stronger at doing that thing? And that's what I help people figure out. Part of my work is going into their homes, and I follow them around their day, like what they do. Like most recently, I worked with a woman, and I spent an hour with her, and I watched her do laundry, and I watched her be in her kitchen. And if I can help somebody find two little things, and I did, I found that this woman was leaning into her toes a lot as she picked up the laundry basket. So I taught her how to shift her weight back and sit more into her heels when she squats down to pick up the laundry basket. That took the pain out of her knees and empowered her backside to do the lifting of the basket. And your glutes are the backside that are the primary movers of standing up out of the car, or standing up after lifting and so she took it out of her knees. So I help people find little biomechanical things that just one little shift changed her world,
That's amazing.
So that's what I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So
it's possible. Don't give up. I mean, we all have, think of it as, okay, this is just a problem I have to solve. So I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
Like, bring me your problems with movement and your environment. How can we troubleshoot them? And I'll tell you, you're having a lot of pain in that knee. I think you need an x-ray. I understand my scope of practice so well. So many physical therapists wish they could do what I do, because their job is dealing with somebody in pain and they probably have 20 minutes to spend with that client. Whereas I get the luxury of an hour, and I require when someone works with me, they have to invest in either 6, 9, or 12 sessions. I need some time to work with you. I'll do one-off sessions, but it's usually an ask me anything type of thing. I can't solve a problem for somebody
Right.
in an hour.
Mhm.
So I need to study you a little bit. You need to lean in and be interested in learning how your body works. And at a minimum 6 sessions, we can make some real breakthroughs.
That's
So in your 6 sessions, and given this pandemic issue, are you still going in people's homes? Are you doing this virtually?
Yeah,
following
I
this?
have been going to people's homes. You know, everyone has a different degree of comfort, and I wear masks and they wear masks, and I've done a lot of outside work. I'm taking a break now till the end of the year and ramping up for some January work. So I don't have very many people I'm seeing right now, but I did up until the end of November see people. Um, and again, I think people realize they need to move and they need to have some answers, and they're spending so much time at home. I guess the people that are calling me and I'm working with are comfortable with having me come in their home,
Mhm.
you know, and
Yeah.
I'm comfortable going in their home. I mean, we have the conversation like, where have you been? Have you been tested? You know, and I've done a lot of outside work over the summer for sure. And I've done Zoom and FaceTime work.
Mhm. So before you transitioned to kind of this, you were leaving your studio and you were transitioning, you had your own health issues, if you don't mind my bringing it up,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a significant life challenge, not a little.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
significant. And maybe if you don't mind sharing a little bit, it might help somebody else figure out how to get through their challenges, how you got through yours.
Sure. I'm happy to. About 3 years ago, I thought I had the flu one day, and 4 days later, I was admitted to the hospital. Long story short, I'm a septic shock survivor. Somehow I got the MRSA bug in my bloodstream. To this day, I have no idea how. I had no prior infection. I was not recovering from any type of surgery. I think it was a nosebleed, honestly. It's the only entryway it could have been, because I remember having a nosebleed that week previous. But you know, MRSA is out there, and septic shock is a bigger deal than ever before. But I was admitted to the hospital immediately. They ran a bunch of tests and discovered that's what it was based on my symptoms. And I had scans upside down and sideways all over my body, and determined that the bacterial infection created what was called vegetations on various, like tumor-like growths on various parts of my body, my spinal cord up in my upper back, my brain, my eyes, my ear, and my heart. I mean, I was going down, seriously. I mean, more than half people that get septic shock die. I'm very lucky to be alive, and I think it was my good health going in
Mhm.
that saved me. So after 5.5 weeks of being bedridden and recovering from, I had a spinal decompression surgery, which is where they go in your upper back and they just take out the bacterial infection and they sew you back up. And then I had a mitral valve replacement in my heart, so open heart surgery from here to here. And then just kept watching the spot on my brain and in my ear, and I had antibiotics on IV drip for about 5 months at home after that, and that handled the rest of the infection. I lost some hearing in my ear. I can still hear, but the levels are not as great as my right ear. My vision came back 100%. And, you know, I went to a rehab facility for 10 days where they basically get you functional. I could climb 4 stairs in this little stair stepper thing in the rehab area, and I could climb down 4 stairs. And that was it. I couldn't shower myself. I couldn't wash my own hair. I couldn't get my arms up here because of the surgeries. I was just so tight and stuck. And I mean, I had to learn to walk again. I was on a walker for several weeks. And my attitude of being a former athlete and someone who had good health in the past, I was just a gamer the whole time. I just kept getting up and trying. And believe me, I had my times when I was upset and crying and would lose hope and faith, but I always knew that movement would help me. So when I got home, barely functional, I just became my own client. And I did for myself what I teach everyone else, which is get down on the ground and start over like you're an infant. When we do what I call baby moves, I basically teach the child developmental series. And I teach it to people like me recovering from surgery. I teach it to professional athletes for recovery, because it's a brain and body reset. How we developed human movement, we are hardwired for it. Nobody taught us how to walk. All our parents did was keep us safe and move furniture out of the way, and they'd give you a finger to help you stand and move right along, right? But you're hardwired for movement, for healthy movement. So I got down on the ground and I rocked and crawled and rolled around, and I led with my eyes, and I practiced deep breathing, because that's the body's first, most fundamental movement pattern. So I did all those things and just started over like an infant again. And I came back strong. I'm in better shape now than I was before the accident.
Wow.
Honestly,
You are.
I still do those things in my Sunday yoga class online. We do that child developmental series. It's part of how I teach yoga. I think it's, yoga started, honestly, the physical part of yoga got codified not too long ago, a couple hundred years ago. Of course, yoga's been around longer than that, but the actual physical part of yoga that we know about really was codified a couple hundred years ago. Prior to that, humans have been moving and trying to get up off the ground and solve pain problems, right, through movement. Self-myofascial release tools were invented by lots of cultures. They were using bones to scrape a sore spot on their arm, or hanging from twine from trees to create traction for their spine. So people trying to get themselves out of pain has been going on way before yoga. Yoga was a great codified way to help create a movement system that helps you reset yourself using your body and twisting and turning and prioritizing the spine and breath and mindset. So yoga combined with the childhood developmental series, my studies in embryology and rehab, I just did that for myself, and it enhanced it. I proved it to myself that this stuff works. I never had to come back from a serious injury like a lot of my clients have, but now I know and have even more of a belief that what I teach really does work. And it doesn't have to hurt to work. The hard stuff, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be sweaty. It doesn't have to be heavy lifting. Some very basic movements honoring how the human being was designed to move can do wonders to help us manage aches and pains.
So do you combine that with food choices? I know right now everyone looks, health isn't just movement, health is what you ingest as well, right?
Yes.
So for you coming back, I know you were always a healthy eater. Like I said, I've known you a long time, and you've been fit for a long time, but you went through a whole lot. So did you choose certain make certain food choices to enhance your body for recovery?
Yeah. Prior to, I have been exploring, I was and am been someone who believes in the ketogenic diet path as one way. I basically cycle how I eat, because we're humans. We are badass. Our system can do a lot of things. So I cycle how I eat so that I can remain metabolically flexible. But I will say, I pretty much stay in ketosis and was in ketosis for a good year and a half prior to getting sick. And again, my physician, who is an athlete himself and on a ketogenic diet, my spine surgeon, said, you're here today because you weren't relying on glucose for your main form of energy. Glucose is what fuels bacterial growth. And yes, you got a bacterial infection, but you should be dead right now. You survived it in part because you got right back in ketosis. So I believe that to be true. That's my own N=1 experiment, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And I've come back pretty strong, in part because I cycle from a paleo way of eating to keto to even a carnivore meat-based lifestyle. So that's probably the common thread that is how I eat now, is I prioritize animal proteins and animal fats and collagen, nose to tail. I take liver supplements. That's kind of, I'm a foodie in the sense that I've revamped my relationship with food, and I've done a lot of research about food, and I know what works for me and what makes me feel my best. And one thing I know from my studies in rehab and physical therapy and yoga and fitness is that like likes like, and we are made of meat, and we are held together by collagen. So when we ingest these things, it supports us. And I can't imagine where I'd be today if I were plant-based, to tell you the truth.
Mhm.
Not that I don't eat plants, but I eat the building blocks of what holds me together.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So you have children, right? So
Mhm.
does your family sort of follow your lifestyle? Because we can't always, we can lead our children, we can't make them do those things that keep them healthy either. So I'm curious to see if your whole family has kind of fallen into the same fitness pattern, exercise pattern, eating pattern.
The one thing we all have in common is that we understand and appreciate learning and educating. That's the common thread that my husband and I together role model for our kids. We're always reading books. We're always doing something productive on the internet, reading, watching documentaries of all types. So that's the foundation, is just be open to learning. And if you don't know something, say, I don't know, and then go learn,
Mhm.
right? So the answer to your question is, my husband and I together changed our diet about 5 years ago. I did a Whole30 program. Do you know what the Whole30 is? I did that program, which is it's an elimination diet that helps you change your habits and your relationship to food. And so I started with that, and my husband went on a pescatarian path. And then we landed at a ketogenic diet path. And he had he had chronic IBS for years,
Mhm.
and has healed himself. He's been healed for a long time. And we didn't go on these food experiments because we wanted to look better or lose weight. We did lose a little bit of weight. We didn't have a lot of weight to lose. We did it because all 4 of our parents died of cancer at young ages. And we thought, wow, what are we going to do here? So we just wanted to figure out how we could do best to not have that happen to us. And more
Mhm.
importantly, teach our kids to be educated about food so they could make smart choices for themselves. So our kids have learned, we've gotten rid of sugar. That was one of the big things we did first, is we became a sugar-free family. And we'll use, when I bake, that's when we use sugar substitutes like monk fruit or erythritol or
Mhm.
allulose. But for the most part, fruit, if we're going to have sugar, we have some fruit, and we just have changed our palate, and we make foods available, and we just have conversations. And if you don't know something, go learn about it, right?
Mhm.
And if everybody's different, like 2 of my kids can eat pineapple and 1 of them can't, it's too acidic, right? Okay, well, figure that out, learn about that. Why is that? So all we do is role model being interested and curious about nutrition. I feel like it's been a very important thing to teach our kids. Food can shape your health. And that's one of the most important things I think my husband and I feel like we've taught our kids, is how to learn about food and be curious eaters, and just always be experimenting and paying attention to the latest, and figure out how to find smart people to follow that you respect, and be open-minded when someone else comes along.
I think the reason I have the interest is I was in very good shape when I found out I had cancer. People said, "You have cancer?" I ate healthy, I didn't do drugs, I didn't smoke ever, and yet I ended up with breast cancer. I think I came through it well because I was in such good shape. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
that having the right building blocks as I went in helped me come through. Now, did I have some long-term side effects? Yeah, but I'm working on them.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I came through well. My son, my youngest son, as you know, Brandon, had his own food issues, allergies, irritable bowel. That's what set me on the food path years ago, was trying to heal him. The reason I asked is because he did get healed, but then, as teenagers will do, jumped off the path. And now
Mm-hmm.
it's just coming back around 3-4 years later to understanding the food choices make
Mm-hmm.
a difference on how his gut reacts.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wondered if your kids stayed more of a steady path, or like mine, decided to jump off the bridge because that's what
Oh,
everybody else did.
my college daughter, we joke that she's, she's kind of on the paleo keto path Monday through Thursday, and then she's on the White Claw donut diet. She's in college.
Right.
So the good news is she learned a lot when she was at home.
Mm-hmm.
And she's home now, and she's very excited to be able to cook for herself and be kind of plugging into having more time to read books about food that during school she doesn't have time to watch and learn.
Right.
You have to you learn by doing, especially with food. There's so much conflicting information out there. You have to believe who you're learning from, and you have to also run those experiments on yourself. Food is so experimental right now. I mean, I do some work with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and just 7-8 years ago, they were eating SpaghettiOs before games. They're not doing that anymore. But sports nutrition has grown very, very, very fast. And therefore now we're all getting exposed to a lot of different ways of eating. It's kind of tested on high level athletes, as a Formula One concept for how things work. And then we learn from that, right? So I've had exposure to, that's part of my influence, is I operate in that world with some of my clients. And while I don't work with food with them, I'm an end user of sports performance technology and what's available from that world. So, and I just teach my kids, and let them experiment.
If anybody watching it who has teenagers, if that's really the best thing that they can do, or young children, is model it. Model, if you want them to get better and not eat all the junk, don't model eating the junk. Don't do that yourself. I can't even, it's been so many years since I've been it's not that I don't occasionally have something. I'm sure you do too. I mean, you're out, you may go ahead and taste something or have some of it, but you don't make a habit of it every day.
Right. Life's too short. And again, we're humans. We're the most amazing creature on the planet, and our bodies are designed to handle so much. We are beyond robust. We are anti-fragile creatures. We benefit from chaos and disorder, So when you want to have chocolate chip cookies, someone made homemade cookies or holiday, I call December cookie season, and my own rules for myself, aren't so disciplined in December, and that's okay. January, the energy of January just works for me to get back on track with most of my healthy habits. With that said, if you were to come to my house, you'd think that I'm pretty disciplined and pretty strict, because I'm making sugar cookies without sugar. I'm making different kinds of cookies. But yeah, you got to live in the world and enjoy life. But at the same time, food is so important. And boy, when you start to clean the crap out of your life, so many things upregulate. Just like with movement, when you start moving well, so many things get better. Your back feels better. Your sleep gets better. So many things just get better. And then when you feel well, you don't want to lose it. And then when you have a few days where you go off track, and don't move, or you don't eat your normal healthy foods, you feel it, and that inspires you to get back on track. So I think most of my clients are active or athletic people, or people who've been healthy and fit and maybe have had a setback. And so they believe, they know, they just need some guidance getting back,
So if you were, Karen, did you have a question?
No, I have to agree with everything that you're saying, because, I've seen that with myself. Before I had my knee surgery, I was very active. And then I became inactive after the surgery. And then I started walking and getting active again. And then it got cold, and I thought, I'll wait till spring. Well, 2 weeks ago, I got back into weightlifting and riding my bike, because this is what I can do. And at the end of the day, I feel so much better. So,
Absolutely.
Well, and you had your surgery as the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, I did, yeah.
In addition to, so you had a little extra to keep you from getting out and doing what you really needed to do, because you were stuck at home. So, so Sandy, before we close, do you have any words of advice for people? We're looking at hopefully some changes now that the vaccine's out with the pandemic, but how they can just kind of get through that challenge of that and feel healthier at home instead of sitting there watching TV, eating the junk food, feeling sorry for themselves because we're all stuck indoors. Any words of advice you could put out there if I was your sister and I was sitting home doing nothing but chowing down on chips and Coke and watching TV? What would you say?
I teach my clients how to create movement snacks throughout their day. So I keep a dumbbell in my office or a kettlebell. And after this podcast, I'll get up and I'll do probably 12 squats. And the dumbbell's not very heavy. It doesn't have to be about strength training and exercise and getting sweaty. Movement is on a spectrum, right? It doesn't have to be the gym level over here. So I'm going to do some squats over here just to ignite my legs and my glutes and get my legs underneath me before I go walk into the kitchen and be with my family again. Also, don't be afraid of using the internet to learn. You can Google how to recover from knee replacement surgery, and one of the things I say that I do for people is I help them make sense out of Dr. Google, because there's a lot of information out there that we can read, and then it can be confusing and overwhelming, and people then they don't do anything because then they're just paralyzed by I don't know what to do. But it's a valuable tool if you know how to do research, and I help people clarify that. Almost after every session I spend with somebody, I send them a follow-up email with a bunch of links. Look at this, look at that. So I aim to make somebody independent of needing a trainer or a coach. I'm more of a consultant that spends a chunk of time with you, and then some clients continue to book me once a month, for example, just to kind of touch base and ask questions. Because they might feel better from working with me, but maybe a few months down the road, well, now they've got this shoulder thing. It's like, we're just moving targets. So use the internet. I teach people how to research wisely to solve their own problems, especially these days. And yeah, hit me up and hire a coach. I think that it's important to, if you consider yourself a lifelong learner, don't be shy about hiring a coach for 1 to 6 or 12 sessions. I work with people I'll spend 2 hours with someone for an Ask Me Anything, and someone can just pick my brain and use my time and take notes, and we record that conversation. And can sometimes be enough for somebody. Or I'll spend 6 sessions, 9 sessions, 12 sessions with somebody to get them, coached into figuring out how to solve some problems. And sometimes that means cutting those sessions short and saying, I really think you need an X-ray. You do have knee pain. This is not something within my scope of practice. I think you need an X-ray. Or the truth is, no, you don't need a doctor. You don't need an X-ray. You can do this at home with some smart movement and some movement snacks and some strength training and some yoga. And that's usually the case.
I love the movement snacks. Instead of eating snacks, you have movement snacks, I think.
Right.
I think that's the word, that's the catchphrase that came out of this whole thing for me. I'll be talking about movement snacks now.
Yeah, taking your garbage out is not a drag. It's an opportunity to move.
Right. Well, and it's all in how you look at the situation. Okay, yep. I have to get it out. It's walking and a little strength training.
Cleaning my house isn't a drag. It's an opportunity to move. Movement cures, movement heals. Remember those 2 phrases. It's true.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So if somebody wants to reach you, how do they do that?
Well, I'm on all the socials, of course. On Instagram, I'm known as Mobility Mama. On Twitter, I'm Sandy Gross. I'm moderately active there, but it's picking up. On Facebook, I'm Sandy Gross. My business is Move Well Education, movewelled.com. I teach my classes on a platform called union.fit, and that link is also at my website. Let's see, did I leave anything out? No, I think that's it. But I teach 2 classes a week. That's the most affordable way to work with me. You can do a drop-in, you can join as a member, you can pay up front for a full year. I teach twice a week. My Wednesday night class is called Self-Massage and Mobility. I teach you how to work with self-massage tools, these rubber balls that are very inexpensive that you can buy either through me or on Amazon. And then we do some corrective exercise. It's always about you know, a certain body region. I pick a theme for the week. And then my Sunday class is called it's a yoga class, and it's called the Weekly Reset and Flow. It uses a little bit of the therapy balls or a foam roller, some of the baby moves I mentioned, and then some gentle, moderate, flowing type yoga with lots of deep breaths and mindset work, and always a guided relaxation. So
Is that
find
online,
me
or
there.
do you have a location for that?
You know, it's all online, and it's not on Zoom. It's a platform that's live streamed, that is a one-way circuit. So I can't see you, but you can see me. And I chose that format because a lot of my clients are top-level athletes and people that are not wanting to be seen. And also, I believe that, you know, because I have an educational platform with how I teach, you should be independent in your home and know more that you don't need me during that group class to give you feedback. I don't have time to look at every little Zoom square and give feedback. So I teach you enough in my programming that you get to practice that on your own. And then there is a chat box in there, and I have a private Facebook group called Friends of Move Well Virtual Studio, and that's where people can ask questions in between classes. And I'll message and talk with anyone for free. That's just part of my marketing and what I do. I'm very generous with my time that way. And if I get into a conversation with somebody kind of deep, you know, via email, I might have to say to them, you know, I think it would be better if we did a couple privates. You know, I think you'd be a great candidate for my Move Well Ed program. You know, I can't do it all over email, right? But I am very generous with my time. So if any of you know anybody, or if you have any questions that I can help you troubleshoot something or give you some ideas, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, you've been terrific.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I've gotten
Thanks
to
for
do
having me.
2 Zooms with you recently. You were on a
I
panel
know.
discussion with me. We didn't get to see each other for a while, and look at us, twice
I
in a few
know.
weeks.
I know.
So.
This is my social life, so thank you.
Me too. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
ladies.
Take
Talk to
care.
y'all soon. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You too.